Hey, this video is going to show some adult graphic images, so fair warning, if you're not into that, you probably want to find another video. This is about a series of 6 books called Faithless and the War Against Christianity. But I have 2 upcoming video ideas I want to run past you. One's called In Defense of Vox Day, and the second is In Defense of Mundane Matt, where I will attempt to play the devil's advocate, because everyone's entitled to due process. I was trying to put my finger on what the problem... Okay, I'm going to turn the page, and it's a little graphic, so if you're not into it. I was trying to put my finger on what the problem was with this book. It's a tale of sin, temptation, corruption, and the final judgment of Satan. The only problem is that they left Christianity out of the equation. And without a Christian framework, the story doesn't make sense. Are demons merely some sort of malicious space aliens? The entire concept of Lucifer and hell only makes sense within a Christian framework. There has to be a moral and just higher power, not just a lower power. How can there be sin without someone to sin against, or some moral code to sin against? You can break laws that you are merely unaware of. Ignorance won't excuse or justify the bad act, but you can't break laws that don't exist. There's a theory that faster-than-light travel and time travel can't exist because an intelligent life form like man would never arise without a causal universe. If time doesn't flow in one direction, if thermodynamics can be violated, if we don't live in a universe where effect follows cause, then we couldn't understand it. So the point is moot. And probably the universe would be without form or structure. Just subatomic particles, zipping backwards and forwards in time, not even enough order and structure to form hydrogen, the building block of all the cool stuff. I think this is actually an incredibly nuanced topic that is light years beyond my understanding, but I have never let ignorance stop me. I will plunge blindly in. The only experts in the topic that I'm even vaguely aware of are some folks in Comicsgate, but I can't just call up Mike Miller or Edwin Boyette. And as for a 6-hour lecture on the nature of good and evil, technically, Cecil is probably also an expert, but from the other end of the spectrum, if you catch my meaning. There seems to be a whiff of sulfur around Cecil. He is the Pan character in Comicsgate. This series feels very modern, like it's Christmas without Christianity. But even Christmas, which is a combination of the European celebration of the winter solstice, has the balancing forces of duality. The winter solstice is cold and dark, the far end of space-time, the tail end of entropy. It represents the death of man and the ultimate heat death of the universe. After that winter solstice, you can think of it as the Big Bang or rebirth. Hope springs eternal. The redemption arc renews. Faithless is very shallow. It's all window dressing and no substance. What's the point of discussing Lucifer and sin without discussing God and redemption? Even if you don't give a damn about the religious aspects of the story. Strictly from a storytelling aspect, it's not good storytelling to tell such an incomplete story. They always say, write what you know. If you either don't know anything about Christianity, or even the ancient philosophical question of the nature of good and evil, or refuse to discuss the positive aspects of religion, i.e. the duality of God and evil and the redemption arc, then why bother telling the story? Redemption arcs are what make stories so compelling. This book wallows in mud and filth, but never shows the path to the light. It's like Darth Vader without the Jedi. The story has elements of Lucifer, demons, and sin, but why is a specific act a sin? What differentiates a sinful act from a neutral or positive act? Can these concepts even exist out of context? The story is 6 issues in, and it's fun and sexy, but all the characters are selfish, uncaring, narcissistic people obsessed with hedonism. In all stories that touch on similar themes, they introduce a force of good, the guiding light of an angel. There isn't a resolution without conflict. The ancient ideas of man's struggle with good and evil, God and Lucifer playing their game on the chessboard that is the universe. All the world's a stage, and all the men merely players. They have their exits and their entrances. Man is like a bird that explodes in a rush of flapping wings from out of the darkness, for a brief moment in the light, only to vanish into the darkness. This story is all darkness. People like stories with conflict, and man's understanding of good and evil is a rich universe to explore. But there has to be a character representing the opposing forces to evil, some character that tries to save her soul. The Doug Tennapel to Nerkish's Cecil. Maybe that is my title. Is Cecil secretly Satan in league with the devil, or can Dirty Doug save Nerkish's soul? Clickbait? Maybe, but nobody really cares. Or maybe Doug Tennapel is actually Satan, and Cecil is the angel in the battle for Nerkish's soul? Anyway, there has to be some pangs of consciousness, some religious grandmother or something who tries to dissuade her from her dark path. But part of the issue is, if the writer is a liberal atheist and doesn't believe in any judgments, then nothing is off limits to them. LGBT is 100% cool. They are even trying to include a P, the P to the E to the D to the O, because they believe love has no age. After all, if it feels good, it must be good. There are no moral absolutes. Everything is relative. After all, there are Middle Eastern cultures that marry children, and the modern left is terrified to take a stand against them. They don't want to be racist. So eventually they keep sliding down the slippery slope because there's nothing to stop them. They have no moral framework, no guidelines, no structure. There's no wrong or right. The concept doesn't even apply. There are no rules to violate because they don't believe in rules. They don't believe in anything. Even the Church of Satan has rules. If I remember from my satanic Bible, the Luciferian dogma is, do what you enjoy, but hurt no one. It's very similar to the golden rule of the New Testament. Even without the idea of a higher power, you can think of religion as being life-affirming and supportive of a structured, ordered civilization. The basic concept is the holy trinity of man and a woman and a little baby, to quote Bob Duro. But the characters in this book are gay, so they can't bring forth life. They are an evolutionary dead end. They are a refutation of life and order. They represent self-indulgence and corruption. But in current year, the writer could never write a story where the lesbian meets a guy who saves her soul and marries her. Though that would be hysterical if that was to happen. The tattooed edgelords that read this comic would lose their freaking minds. They would throw their vape pens across the room and get on Twitter and somehow blame Trump. So really, for your modern lefty atheist, it's not really possible to tell this tale of good and evil because they simply aren't allowed to discuss God or redemption. What is the author going to say? That homosexuality is a sin, and to be saved, she must put down the drink and drugs and get married and bring forth life? That's so 1950s. That concept is haram in current year because of the tolerance and diversity, or something. We must be tolerant. Diversity is our strength. You know, every time they say that diversity is our strength, I just want to say, do you have evidence to back up that statement? Because it really doesn't seem like it's a strength. You know, it's funny that in Western Europe, they've given up the old gods for Christianity. Then they gave up Christianity for atheism. Then they were weak without the unity of religion. The globalists are bringing in Muslims to replace them. Congratulations, England and France, Germany and Sweden. In 200 years, your genocide will be complete. The basic story is she meets this other girl, and the whole thing feels very 90s, very set in the Blade universe of, you know, this kind of loud, dancing, hot chicks, crop tops, tight pants, that kind of thing, punk rock, 3 chords, that kind of vibe where everyone is just, you know, beautiful and hip, slick, and cool. She's gay. She meets this girl who is some sort of demon or is supposed to represent the demon. And then she meets her father, the demon's father, who I guess would have to be the devil. And so she ends up having sex with both of them. It's totally bizarre. Oh God, this bizarro scene. These white guys are harassing her because that's what white guys do. I think the next scene is a graphic adult scene. She uses her demon powers to have them snuggle each other. because there's no, you can always degrade people with blonde hair. You can always degrade white people. If their colors were anything other than this magazine, this comic would never get made because it would be racist. And so she's literally having them rape each other. They're having sex against their will without their consent. So nothing in the story makes sense. They're evil, reprehensible people with no chance of redemption, or at least none yet, and I'm already 6 issues in. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed this black pill. Like, comment, subscribe. I will see you all next episode.